I still remember the way her voice trembled when she said it. Soft but unshakably direct, like a truth that had waited too long to be spoken. "Why do you keep avoiding me?" My friend's mom said it in the quietest corner of the kitchen, her eyes not angry, not accusing, just hurt. And in that moment, every excuse I had rehearsed dissolved into nothing. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness and second chances, and in the quiet power of unspoken love, take a second to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be heard, and maybe, just maybe, they might help someone heal. I had been avoiding her for months, not in an obvious way. I still went over to my best friend Armand's house. I still laughed in the living room, still watched late-night football games, still helped him with his college applications. But I timed my visits carefully. I arrived when she was at work. I left before she came home. If I heard her car in the driveway, my chest would tighten like I was a thief caught in the act of stealing something I didn't deserve. Her name was Samina. She wasn't just my friend's mom. She was the kind of woman who remembered how you liked your tea, who asked about your exams like they were her own, who packed extra food just in case you hadn't eaten properly. After Armand's father passed away 3 years ago, she carried the entire household on her shoulders without ever complaining. She worked long shifts at the hospital, came home exhausted, and still managed to sit with us at the dining table, smiling like the world hadn't been cruel to her. Maybe that was the problem. The first time I noticed something shift inside me, it wasn't dramatic. There was no lightning, no music in the background. It was a rainy evening. Armand had fallen asleep on the couch, textbooks scattered across his chest. I was about to leave when I saw her standing by the window, watching the rain fall in thin silver lines against the streetlight. Her face looked different in that light, softer, lonelier. For a second, I didn't see a friend's mom. I saw a woman who had given everything and received very little in return. That realization terrified me. I hated myself for it. I was 21. She was in her early 40s. The world would twist it into something ugly. People would talk. Our man would feel betrayed. So I did the only thing I thought was right. I distanced myself. But distancing yourself from someone you care about is like trying to hold your breath underwater. You can pretend for a while, but eventually, you come up gasping. She noticed. Of course she did. Mothers notice everything. The day she confronted me, the house was unusually quiet. Armand had gone out with friends. I had come over to drop off a notebook he'd forgotten. I thought she wouldn't be home. But there she was, standing by the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, flour dusting her hands. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, warm and comforting, and suddenly suffocating. I tried to escape with a quick greeting, but she stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. Not angry, not suspicious, just wounded. "Why do you keep avoiding me?" she asked. I wanted to laugh it off, blame exams, blame work, blame anything. But the words stuck in my throat, because the truth was dangerous. The truth was that every time she smiled at me, something inside me softened in a way it never had before. The truth was that I admired her strength, her resilience, the way she loved without asking for anything back. The truth was that I didn't trust myself to stand too close to her without wanting more. I looked down at the kitchen tiles, feeling like a coward. She sighed, but it wasn't a sigh of frustration. It was the kind of sigh someone makes when they fear they've done something wrong. She told me she felt like she had offended me, that maybe she had said something careless, that maybe I no longer felt comfortable in their home, and that broke me, because the last thing I ever wanted was to make her doubt her own kindness. So I told her a version of the truth. I said life had been overwhelming. I said I was trying to figure myself out. I didn't confess my feelings, but I let her see the conflict in my eyes. She studied me for a long moment, as if trying to read a book whose pages had been torn out. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled, not a romantic smile, not an encouraging one, a gentle, understanding smile. She told me that growing up is messy, that sometimes we step back from people not because we don't care, but because we care too much and don't know what to do with it. She said she didn't need explanations. She just didn't want to lose someone who felt like family. Family. That word echoed in my chest like a warning bell and a comfort at the same time. From that day, I stopped running. I didn't suddenly confess anything. I didn't cross any lines. But I allowed myself to be present again. I helped her carry groceries. I stayed for dinner. I listened when she talked about her long shifts and the patients who reminded her of her late husband. And in those conversations, something shifted inside me. My feelings began to change shape. What I had mistaken for romantic longing slowly revealed itself as something deeper and purer, a fierce desire to protect her happiness. I realized I wasn't in love with her the way a young man falls for someone unattainable. I was in love with the idea of becoming someone worthy of the strength she embodied. She had become a mirror. Every time I saw how hard she worked, I pushed myself harder in my studies. Every time I saw her choose kindness despite exhaustion, I questioned my own impatience. She wasn't an object of forbidden affection. She was proof that love, in its most mature form, is quiet sacrifice. One evening, months later, Armand received his acceptance letter to a university abroad. The house exploded with joy. Samina cried openly, hugging her son like she was holding on to both pride and fear at the same time. I stood in the corner clapping, smiling, and feeling a strange ache in my chest. Because I knew what this meant. The house would become quieter, lonelier. The night before Armand left, the three of us sat together at the dining table. We talked about childhood, memories, about burnt dinners and power outages and inside jokes that would now travel across oceans. When Armand went to pack the last of his bags, she and I were left alone again. But this time, there was no tension, only gratitude. She thanked me for being there for her son when she couldn't always be. She said I had been a blessing in their lives. And as she spoke, I realized something profound. The love I felt wasn't something to be ashamed of. It wasn't something to run from. It was a lesson. Sometimes we mistake admiration for romance. Sometimes we confuse gratitude with longing. But when we let time clarify our hearts, we discover that not every intense feeling is meant to be acted upon. Some are meant to shape us. After Armand left, I still visited. Not as a guilty boy hiding from his emotions, but as someone who genuinely cared. We talked about his video calls, about her adjusting to an emptier home. I helped fix things around the house. I listened when she missed her husband, and slowly she stopped being my friend's mom in my mind. She became something simpler and more beautiful, a mentor, a reminder, a living example of resilience. Years later, when I stood on a stage receiving an award for the community program I had started, a program inspired by watching her serve others tirelessly, she was in the front row. Armand had flown back for the ceremony, grinning like he always did. But it was her eyes I searched for. They were shining with pride. In that moment, I understood why I had once avoided her. Not because I loved her in a way that was wrong, but because I was afraid of loving someone so deeply in a way that demanded I grow up. Love isn't always about possession. Sometimes it's about transformation, and she transformed me. If this story has touched your heart even a little, take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with someone who believes love can come in unexpected forms, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of what truly matters. Your support keeps these stories alive. And before we reach the end, I have a special request for you. In the comments, write one lesson this story reminded you of, whether it's about respect, growth, boundaries, or gratitude. I read every single one, and your words might help someone else who's struggling with their own confusing emotions. The last time she asked me why I had been avoiding her, I thought it was the beginning of something dangerous. I was wrong. It was the beginning of something healing. Life doesn't always give us dramatic love stories. Sometimes it gives us complicated emotions wrapped in ordinary moments. It tests our character not by what we feel, but by what we choose to do with those feelings. I chose to stay, to grow, to respect boundaries, to turn admiration into motivation, and in doing so, I didn't lose her. I gained a lifelong reminder that the purest kind of love is the one that makes you better without ever demanding anything in return. If this story made you reflect on your own life, on someone who shaped you, challenged you, or helped you grow, don't scroll away silently. Engage with this video. Let your heart speak. Because sometimes, sharing a story is the first step toward understanding our own. And maybe somewhere out there, someone who is avoiding a difficult truth will find the courage to face it. Not with fear, but with grace.